Hello and welcome everyone to the Turbocharge Business Insights with MySQL Database Developer Lab. My name is Tara Van Cleve and I'm a Marketing Event Manager for the Developer Initiative here at Oracle. Today we're excited to introduce you to Oracle MySQL Database Service and HeatWave, and to show you how you can quickly develop and deploy secure cloud-native apps using the world's most popular open source database. If you do not currently have an Oracle Cloud account, we encourage you to create one now. A free account link has been placed in both the Zoom chat and the Slack channel. We'll also be recording today's session, so if you'd like to follow along with the lab walkthrough and then complete the lab later on at your own pace, we'll be sending the link to the recording to the same email address you registered with. You'll also have the opportunity to participate in a short quiz on the material covered in today's lab. Upon completing the quiz, you'll receive a Developer Masterclass badge that you can share to your social media, recognizing your commitment and expertise. If you have questions during the lab, please ask them in the Slack channel and we'll answer them throughout the session. The link to join is bit.ly/join-the-Slack. And then once you're in, you'll land in the general channel. So from there, you can search for hands-on lab, so HOL_022422 to reach our dedicated space for Q&A today. Special thanks to Bill Papp, Hananto Wakaksono, and Tony Darnell, MySQL Principal Solutions Engineers, who will be monitoring the channel. So say hello to us over there. Today's lab will be presented by Mandy Pang, Senior Principal Product Manager of MySQL and HeatWave Development, Priscilla Gavao, MySQL Senior Solution Engineer, and Persidy Foster, MySQL Senior Partner Solution Engineer. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Priscilla.
Hi, thank you so much. Again, my name is Priscilla Galvão. I'm the first one delivering the first part of the labs. So the workshop schedule, it's going to look like this. We'll start like kind of saying to you how you can create your tenancy and how to sign into the tenancy when it's done. And then we start the labs. In order to use HeatWave and as well the other compute that we are going to use during the labs, we have to start with the virtual cloud networking. And then we are going to create the MySQL HeatWave database system. And during the time that we are waiting, Mandy Pang will do a presentation about HeatWave, and we'll continue with the labs. We will add the clusters, the HeatWave clusters to the MySQL HeatWave database system, and we will create an SSH key that will be used in order to connect to the compute instance. We will create a compute instance. We will connect to the MySQL database, HeatWave database system. We will run some queries to compare between MySQL and MySQL HeatWave. And we have one lab there that we will probably not cover today, but it's a bonus that if you want to cover and try later on your own, it's on our materials as well. And we have the lab 6 that Persidy is going to cover, where she is going to connect HeatWave using MySQL Workbench. She's going to create a PHP MySQL application for you to see how you do that on your daily basics, and as well utilize Oracle Analytics Cloud with MySQL HeatWave. Okay, so if you don't have your tenancy yet, correct, and you're planning to do so and do all the labs with us today, please access the link that Tara shared with you. You'll probably see a page like this where you're going to start, click on Start for Free, and follow the instructions that you're going to see on the page. As well, Tara is going to share with you a link for our lab materials. And there is all the instructions that we are going to follow today. So if by any chance you don't have this link, let us know and we'll send to you again. And that's the first part of this small presentation. And I will now stop sharing pretty quick so I can share the labs, okay? I hope you are seeing my screen. If not, please, Tara, let me know. So as I mentioned, you're gonna receive one link like this from Tara with all the instructions, and we are gonna follow through all the steps here today. So to start, you see an instruction as how to create your free trial account and what the steps that you expect to follow. And And then we are going to sign in on the account. To sign in the account, you're going to visit cloud.oracle.com. And then you're going to click on enter your tenancy ID, and you click on continue here. You're going to ask for your username and password and sign in. So this is the dashboard for the Oracle Cloud. So now let's start the labs. So on lab number 1, like I mentioned, we are going to start by creating the networking. So following these steps here, for those of you that doesn't know where the menu is on the Oracle Cloud Console, is those 3 lines on the top left corner. So you're going to click there, go on networking, and click on Virtual Cloud Networks. Today, we are using the root compartment as the compartment for us to create all the things that we need, correct? So for you to start, please click on Start VCN Wizard, create VCN with internet connectivity, and click on Start VCN Wizard, please. Okay. So as you can see here on the left side, we even say to you the name of the VCN that you have to use in order to follow the correct steps for our lab. So please copy the name and paste on the correct place. I'm gonna do a little trick on mine because I saw that I have one VCN on my root. So then you follow, again, choose the compartment root, and all this information is already like Oracle already provided to you. So you don't need to change anything here. You only have to click on next. Once you do that, you can check the information about your Oracle Virtual Cloud Network and click on create. It takes some time, a little time to create. Okay, so once your virtual cloud network is done, you can click on View Virtual Cloud Network. And you see exactly the same instructions on item 8 on the lab. And then we are going to change a little things on the private subnet. We are doing this because MySQL HeatWave Database Service, it's only available on the private subnet. It has only a private IP address. And we also have to add the ports that MySQL will utilize on the networking. So that's why we are making this change. So if you click on private subnet and click on security list for private subnet and click on add ingress rules, you're going to follow the instructions here where it says for you to add an ingress rules with source CIDR 0.0.0.0/0. So I'm going to copy it to make it easier. The destination port range is the ports that's utilized by MySQL. We are going to enter it here, and as well a description. And then we can click on add ingress rules. Okay. So as you can see here on the list, you see the 3306 and 3306 just added. Okay. So now we are going to do the task number 2, that's create the MySQL database for HeatWave instance. So here on the menu, where we can find that, we can click on the menu again, go on databases, MySQL DB systems. That's the location. Okay. You can click on, again, create MySQL DB system. We put the name that we are going to use for that instance. So please use MDS-HeatWave so you can follow exactly the same instructions that we are sharing and the description that we added as well. So please, at this point, make sure that you are selecting HeatWave. We have 3 options with MySQL. We have the standalone, that's a single instance MySQL by itself. We have the high availability option where you have 3 MySQL instances running together. In case of a failure, it switchovers to the other one. So we have 0 data loss there. And we have the HeatWave that's going to be used today on the labs. So for the username and password, we are going to use admin. And I'm going to pop up a note here for me myself. And I'm going to use welcome 1, 2, 3. Okay. So let me put it here for us. Okay. And then I'm going to select the MVS VCN. So on our instructions, we are asking you to select the availability domain 3. Okay. And on the shape, when you are using HeatWave, there is only one shape allowed there. That's 16 CPUs with 512 giga of memory. So you don't change this configuration and shape. But you can change the data storage size in case you have more data than 1 tera for your environment, correct? For our labs, we are not going to do enable backups, but you can do on your environment if that's the case. You can change the retention period if you want to store your backups for more than 7 days. So I'm enable that. On show advanced options here, we have some things that we can do. First, you can change the configuration file for the MySQL HeatWave. Here on networking, I'm going to add here host name because we might use this later on for Oracle Analytics Cloud. So we need the host name. And on data import, depending where your tenancy is, for example, mine is on US East Ashburn, as you can see on the tops of the screen. So you have to select the location where the data is. We put all the data for our labs, the Airport DB database on an object storage, and there are some links for you to download that. So during the creation, you can already have the data loaded inside your database. So it's easier and ready to go. So you click and add that information and click on create. So since this is going to take some time now to be provisioned, Mandy Penn is going to deliver us a small presentation now. Thank you. Mandy, with you.
Thanks, Priscilla. Let me share my screen. So what I would like to do is to go over the overview of MySQL HeatWave and give you some more background of what are the features and why are we doing this service. So as you all know that MySQL is really good at OLTP. And what we found now is that some of our customers, when they want to do analytics or OLAP queries on MySQL data, they usually needs to move the data from MySQL to another database. So what we do with HeatWave is that we want to add the capability of allowing users to be able to run OLAP queries against their MySQL data in the same database platform, so that we provide one single platform for your OLTP and OLAP workload. So HeatWave is actually a technology that is developed in Oracle Labs. And the goal of HeatWave is to create the fastest in-memory query processing engine for Oracle. So what we have done is that we have have a tight integration to MySQL DB, so that it allows you to be able to run both your OLTP application and OLAP application in the same platform. And because of the tight integration, data is, you don't need to do ETL to the data. So we automatically propagate the data from InnoDB to HeatWave. And also, as you can see here, that HeatWave actually sits behind the MySQL. So any of the application or user that interact with HeatWave actually goes through MySQL. So there's no change in your application or your interaction with HeatWave. It's just the same as what you have been doing with MySQL. And for HeatWave, since we are doing it in memory, so our design is that to use commodity hardware, which is we're currently using on OCI, optimized for OCI, and be able to allow to scale to thousands of cores so that we can handle a large amount of data for your OLAP workload. And the other thing we have is that machine learning based automation. We want to make the service easy for customer to use. So we have a set of features that is using machine learning based to automate the system so that it can improve the performance and the memory usage of the system. And then we can talk a bit more in the later slide. So the way that we integrate with MySQL is that we have optimized the MySQL compiler and optimizer so that it is aware with HeatWave. And the way that we do it is that HeatWave is set as a secondary engine to the MySQL. So if there's any queries that comes in to the MySQL database, the MySQL optimizer will decide on whether this query should run in InnoDB or it should run in HeatWave. So this is actually transparent to the end user. The optimizer will decide based on 3 criteria. First, the data needs to be stored in HeatWave. So since we are an in-memory engine, the way that we store data is different from MySQL. MySQL store in row-based, and we store the data in hybrid columnar format for fast processing for OLAP queries. The second criteria is that all the queries needs to be supported by HeatWave. So currently, HeatWave support about 80% of the operators and functions in MySQL. So if there's query that have operators that we currently don't support, that's the query that will not be run in HeatWave. The third criteria is that when MySQL optimizer gets the query, it generates the query plan, and then it will have an estimate on how much time it will take to run the query. And we have a threshold to decide whether this query make more sense to run in InnoDB or if it can get accelerated in HeatWave. So if the time that it estimates is go over the threshold, then the query will run in HeatWave. So if all 3 criteria is met, then the query will get pushed down to HeatWave. It will get executed in memory in HeatWave, and then once the query process is done, the result will send back to MySQL, and then the result will pass back to the application of the user. So from the end user perspective, there's no change that is needed. We will automatically decide whether the query will get accelerated by HeatWave. And because of that, the same reason is that because of the tight integration, so any of the data that gets updated on the InnoDB, we also automatically propagate into HeatWave. So the query that you will run in HeatWave will get the latest data from InnoDB. And you can run your OLAP application or BI or analytics tools on the same platform. And we do support BI tools such as Tableau, Quicker, Locus, and later on, we will show you how to connect with Oracle Analytics Cloud. Just to give you some performance difference that we have, improvement that we see using HeatWave. So if we are comparing here is that with Amazon RDS MySQL, you can see that with 4 terabyte of TPCH data, we are running 5,400 times faster. And here we're only considering the queries that can return within 11 hours. There are even some queries that runs even longer and couldn't finish in RDS. And we are 2/3 of the costs of RDS with 5,400 times faster. And if we are comparing with Aurora, here we actually comparing with mixed workload using CH benchmark, which is actually have OLTP transactions and then also OLAP queries running at the same time. And on the graph here, we are comparing on the OLAP portion of the query. So you can see that we are 18 times faster and then still 2.4 times cheaper than Aurora. This is on the OLAP side, but on the OLTP side, when we are doing this benchmark, the query performance is basically similar to Aurora. And if we're looking at Redshift, which is targeted for OLAP or analytic workloads, with Aqua turned on, you can see that here that Heatwave is 6.8 times faster than Redshift, and yet we are still almost close to 2 times cheaper than Redshift. So the other features that we have is what we call Myascal Autopilot. Is actually the machine learning based automation that I talked earlier. In here, we focus on 4 areas: system setup, data load, query execution, and failure handling. So all this, as we use machine learning to enhance the system and performance and memory usage. So on the top, you can see the system setup and data load is right now is more like an advisor. So you invoke the advisor, and then we provide suggestions for you, and then tell you, like, for example, what are the performance improvement that you can expect. For example, in system setup with auto provisioning, a lot of the time with OLAP system that usually is a cluster. Usually what happens is that user needs to manually decide how many nodes that they will need for their workload. And usually this is not an easy task. Usually it's a trial and error kind of task. With auto provisioning, what we do is that we sample the data in MySQL and then use machine learning to predict the number of nodes or the cluster size that you need for Heatwave in order to run your workload. On the data load side, one of the examples is that we have auto data placement. So in Heatwave, the way that we organize the data or store the data in the memory of Heatwave, currently by default, we use the primary key, but that may not be the optimal data placement in the Heatwave memory. So for example, if you have columns other than the primary key that you use to do join a lot, with, for example, table A and B, if we are placing the data based on the primary key, the data may not be at stored in the same node. So when a query that comes in that needs to join around for the 2 tables, then we will need to shuffle the data to one node so that we can process the data, and that increase the query performance, increase the query time because of the network traffic and also shuffling the data. So with data placement is that if we specify the columns, then we can put the data in the same node so that it will we will not need to shuffle the data around for query processing. So what auto data placement does is that we look at the history of the query that you ran in the system and see if there is any columns that we should use for data placements to improve the overall performance of the system. So when you run the auto data placement, we will provide provide suggestions on the columns that should use for data placement, and also an estimated like performance improvement that you should expect to see. So that's the for the advisor for this data load. The other part is the more automated, so there's no user intervention needed. So there's the failure handling, where if there's a cluster, if there's a node in the cluster that fail, we automatically recover the node and then also reload the data so that the system can be on when the recovery is done. For query execution, for example, we have a query plan improvement. So that is when you execute query in Heatwave, we save the statistics of the query, like whether it's a execution or during execution. And so we can use the statistics to improve the query plan for the next query, whether it's the query is the same query or the query that that has similar construct. So the system can intelligently improve performance by itself. The other aspect of the HeatWave is that since we integrate with MySQL, if you have any workload that you have on premise or in the cloud that you're running on OLTP where you cannot move to HeatWave, you can use MySQL native replication to replicate the data from your on-premise MySQL instance into HeatWave so that you can take advantage of HeatWave for your OLAP query acceleration. So this is just to show you that on Oracle Cloud, we also try to make it a seamless surface for customers to use for their workload. So we integrate with other service on OCI. So the two areas that we have done right now is that on data ingestions, we have the data integration service integrated. So this is an ETL service on OCI, which allows you to import data from different sources other than MySQL. And also on the data visualizations side, we have an integration with Oracle Analytics Cloud. So here's some of the customer testimonial that we have so far with customer running on HeatWave. But overall, the takeaway for this is that customer who moved to HeatWave, they are happy with the performance that they have seen with HeatWave. They are usually seeing a lot better performance compared to their previous workload, and also the cost reduction that they have seen here. So to summarize of our HeatWave, we are the only service that provide efficient processing for both OLAP, OLTP, and mixed workload. And if you're looking at analytics workload, we are 35 times better price performance than Snowflake, 13 times price better performance than Redshift, 36 times better than BigQuery on Google, and 15 times better than Microsoft Synapse. For mixed workload, as we've seen or showed earlier, that we are actually 42 times better price performance than Aurora. We are the only MySQL service with machine learning-based automation that I've been showing you the list of features that we have. We support hybrid deployments where whether you have your OLTP or your MySQL deployment currently on premise or from another cloud, you can use it HeatWave to get the query acceleration. And also, this is the service that is offered by MySQL developments. So you can always get the latest version. So I think that's conclude my short presentation on the HeatWave overview. So I'll hand it back to you, Priscilla, to see how's the provisioning of the MySQL node goes.
Thank you, Mandy. I'm going to start sharing my screen again. So as you can see now, my MySQL database system is already active. It was concluded just some time ago. So as Mandy explained, once you create the MySQL database system, we have to create the HeatWave cluster and the nodes behind the scenes. So that's what we are going to do next here. On our instructions, task 3 says add a HeatWave cluster to MDS HeatWave MySQL database system, and that's where we are at now. So if you are on your MySQL database system on the console, and on the left side, if you click on under resource on HeatWave, you're going to see HeatWave cluster information. You can click on add HeatWave cluster. And we have here what we call the button for estimate node count. So if you click and click on generate estimate, it's going to check how much data you have on your MySQL database system and tell you how many nodes you need for your cluster. So it takes some time for them to analyze like all the data and bring the results. So let's wait. please, if you have any question, feel free to add to our Q&A or as well on the Slack channel. I'm gonna wait a little more for this to finish. Sorry, this takes some time. Okay, so as you can see, the name of our database is AirportDB, is the database that we are going to use for our labs. And if you expand, you see all the tables that we have and which one is going to load to HeatWave. So I'm going to select all the tables, and because that's what I'm going to do on my labs. One thing that's good to think about it and look, for you to load the data into HeatWave, you have to have this load command. So please copy this during your labs because it's going to be useful for you once you have the nodes created, correct? So I'm going to copy that and apply node count estimate and click on Add HeatWave Cluster. So as you can see here, it's creating the cluster and we'll see the nodes once it's done here. So since this is going to take some time, I'm going to continue with the labs and do the lab 2, the next step, where we are going to create a DB system, okay? So the first task here, we are going to create a SSH key on the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure Cloud Shell. And the shell is located here on the top of your screen. And this is the sign. So you're going to click there and it's going to pop up the Oracle Cloud Shell underneath here. And that's what we are going to use kind of as a terminal for our labs. I'm going to wait for it to pop up first. Okay, as you can see, it's already done. So for us to create the SSH key that is going to be used for the compute instance, we are going to use this command. You can simply copy and paste. And we usually recommend for you to do enter and enter for these labs, okay? So if you go to the SSH folder, you're going to see that the keys are there, both the public and private keys. They were generated here, okay? So for the next step, let's start creating the compute, and we are going to use this key in order for our compute creation. So if we click here on the top menu and click under compute and instances, that's where we are going to create the instance now. So click on create instance. And we are going to, let me see. There is a name of the instance here, MVS client. And I'm going to copy and paste here. Okay. So for these labs, we are changing just the configuration and shape for the machine. Instead of the E2.1 micro, we are using another configuration. As you can see here, we are using the VM standard E2.2. So let's click on change shape and select under the list here the VM standard E2.2 and click on select shape. Okay. So just one reminder, put it as always on the compartment root. That's what we are using for these labs. So as you can see here, it's picking my the virtual cloud network that I created before, and we can paste the public key. So in order for us to get the public key, remember it's here on the shell, you can use this command cat and for get the public key. So you're gonna have that information, and then you basically copy all this and paste here on the SSH public key, okay? For the boot volume, I'm not going to make any changes here for our specific compute, but you could change some configurations like use in-transit decryption, encrypted volume, and other options, okay? So once we added the key, we can click on create. It's going to take some minutes here to finish the creation. Again, it takes some minutes. And please, if you have any questions, ask on the chat or on the Slack channel. Okay, so my computer is already running and ready to go here. So we are going to start the next task is kind of for us to be able to connect with MySQL database system. As I mentioned, it has only the private IP address. So we are going to use the MySQL client that we just created as a bastion to connect to it. So in order to do this, we are using MySQL shell. That's the software that we're going to use. So we are going to install that on the compute, okay? So one thing that we have to know is if in order to connect with MySQL, correct, we have to have the private IP address for the MySQL Database Service, and as well the public IP address for the compute. So I'm going to copy these two information from myself here on my end. So this is the public, again, for the compute. And if we go back on the database, we are going to find the private IP address there. And this is the private IP for my machine itself. Okay. Okay. So now that I have everything copied on my file, if you are using Notepad to copy your information, your file should be look like something like this. Okay. For us to SSH to the compute, we are going to use like this instruction that we have, and we are going to only change the IP address here. I'm using the public IP address for my compute. So I'm going to paste here, and we should be there. So we are on the compute right now. Okay. As I mentioned, we are using the MySQL shell to connect to the MySQL Database Service later on. So we are going to install the MySQL shell right now. It takes some time to install. And as soon as it's done, we are going to continue. Yeah, keep in mind that this is all live. So that's why sometimes we have to wait for a resource to be done or to be created or things to install. So let's continue now. So since we already have MySQL shell installed, we are going to use this. This is the way that the command is for us to connect. So MySQL shell, the user that we created, -p, it's to request a password. And here we have to add the private IP address for the MySQL database system. So I'm going to copy this on my notepad here on my other screen. And I'm going to change with my IP address. Okay. So your command should be looking something like this. So MySQL shell, user admin, P, the password, the host, and SQL. Okay. And enter your password at this time that you used for the MySQL database service. Okay. As you can see, we are on the MySQL shell and we are on our MySQL database service now. Okay. So here there is a view that can see the total records per table on our airport DB. So if we see, it should match with what more or less what we have on our example. Okay. So now that we have the MySQL system running, the compute running, correct? Let me check if our nodes for the Heatwave is already provisioned. Yes, as you can see here, we have 2 active nodes for Heatwave. So we are going to load the data now into Heatwave. So remember when we added the nodes, I said to you to copy that instructions, and it's basically the same thing that we see here on the lab. So you can call this function that's going to load all the data into Heatwave. So we are going to see a window, a screen like this, saying like how many tables was loaded and everything. And we will verify this once it's done. Okay, as you can see, it shows the tables that was loaded and all the information that we need here. To verify if all things went correctly, you can change to the performance schema and do a deselect where it's going to check the load status for all the tables. So as you can see, they are all available and it's correct. Okay, so now that we have the data loaded into Heatwave, we are going to start to run some queries and compare between MySQL and Heatwave. Okay, so on lab 4 test 1, that's where we are at. So let's go back and use our airport DB again, not the performance schema. And we are going to start doing some tests. So in order for you to see if one query is running or not on Heatwave, we have to check if they are using the second engine rapid. So when you do an explain on a select, as you can see here, you're going to see here on extra saying using secondary engine rapid. So it's correct. It's using Heatwave right now. Okay. So if we execute the same query, exactly the same query without the explain, you're going to see how fast it was to bring the data for us. So it was under it's 0.7 seconds, correct? And then we can decide that we don't want to use Heatwave on this test. Now I want to test on MySQL itself. So you can click and do a set section use secondary engine off. And you're going to go back to MySQL and run exactly the same query that we ran before. And we'll see how long it takes to run. As you can see, the same query here, it takes 15 seconds to bring exactly the same data for us. And the other one was 0.7 seconds, okay, with HeatWave. So if we want to check if we are using or not HeatWave, you can use show variables like use secondary engine. So if we do that, it's going to say that our use secondary engine now is off, correct? Again, for us to turn it on is set section use secondary engine on. So we are going to copy this and do some more tests. So here, the query tool, it's going to find top 10 companies selling the biggest amount of tickets for planes taking off from the US airports. That's basically what the query is doing. So let's try this query. Remember, we just set the engine to on, so it's going to run the first time on HeatWave. So it's taking 0.26 seconds, okay? So I'm going to turn off again my engine and try to run the same query on MySQL itself. And as you can see, it's going to take a little longer. It's still running. Yeah, it's still running. So remember, the other one took like 0.26 seconds. And with MySQL itself, it didn't finish yet. This is taking a long time. Okay, so it took 1 minute and 43 seconds. Exactly the same information we got for 0.26 seconds with HeatWave. So let's do one more test. Let's run the next query here that brings us the number of bookings that Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin made for a price of greater than $400, okay? So let's copy this one to turn on the engine, and we are gonna run this select. On HeatWave. So on HeatWave was 4 seconds. So let's see how long it's gonna do it for MySQL itself. So it took 34 seconds, exactly the same that took 4 seconds with HeatWave. So these are only examples as how fast and how much HeatWave can save you on our queries, correct? How much time it can save. So we finished the first part of our labs. We have, as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, that we have a lab 5 here where you can test our MySQL Autopilot as well to even improve your queries and improve the performance on HeatWave. So this is kind of a bonus for you to try on your own. If you have any questions, like after our presentation lab and you are not able to do anything here and you need questions, you can contact us as well. So now I'm going to pass to my coworker, Percy Foster, and she's going to do the lab sequence with us. Percy, it's with you.
Great job, Priscilla. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, let us all take a deep breath. Stand up, shake it up. We've been working for quite a while. Let's relax while I set up my screen, okay? Right? What I want to do is this workshop is especially for programmers, developers. I'm also a developer. And here's the deal. In my world, in the development world, I don't trust anything until I can code to it. Yes, you were able to do some SQL scripts and you were able to go into MySQL shell. But as developers, we know that, hey, I can't show a shell script to my client. They want their stuff. They want to see their app. They want web apps. And I can't just sit there and type in stuff to make changes. I want background programs. And you know what? What if I want to use Workbench? How do I do that? Well, that's my job. I'm going to show you. So let me go ahead and share my screen. In Workbench, I don't know if any of you have used it, but if you're a MySQL person, you definitely have. And what the first thing you would do is to set up your connection. And okay, let me go ahead and also open up the lab so you guys can keep up with me. Let's go here. I'm on lab 6. We're not gonna do all of lab 6 but we are going to do quite a few things with lab 6. First, we're gonna connect to HeatWave, and here's the instructions. You're gonna get your IP addresses. Remember, you need your compute instance, your bastion instance, which is the instance that says, okay, if you have the right credentials, you can come in and do stuff on the system. Fine. And then you need that. And then in order to get to the database, you also need your database IP address, which is right here. So let me show you what I did in my setup here. This is my bastion, my compute, my app server that I have my SQL shell on. And right here is my HeatWave database IP address. And notice I'm using SSH. So I pointed to my SSH key. Okay, test, let's see, don't embarrass me. Oh, it's doing good, all right. So now we've tested it. I put in my password. Remember, you have to put your admin and you remember the welcome #123. Fine, let's close and open. Now, boy, my demo is doing great so far. All right, and now remember how you guys did the check after Priscilla loaded the cluster to see if everything was there. We use schema, and then we say, hey, is the HeatWave cluster loaded? Let's go and check. Okay, my HeatWave cluster is loaded. I have data, I can do stuff. Here, let's take a quick look at the tables. Okay, look at this. Now, let me show you how big a database we're using, the file. That's quite a bit of data for MySQL. Look at the flight database. The flight table, I mean, takes a while. We have, oh goodness, where's my rule? Okay, It's pointing to the wrong row here. Here it is. We have about 4 million. Okay. Now, because I've been playing, I've been adding and deleting stuff to it. So this is what's happening. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at the airline table. It's listing it. Okay, fine. Now, okay, we can do all this in Workbench. What about applications? Well, listen, I have this application. Let me open it. I'm going to use this is my Windows. This is my Windows. Sorry, this is my Windows. Hold on.
PowerShell?
Hold on. Yeah, this is a Windows PowerShell that I have open, and in there I have my computer, which is pointing to my compute instance. And for my compute instance, I have this Perl application. Okay, if you look, I have a couple of Perl applications right now. This is hold on. All right, this is my application. And let's go to the site. Hold on. This is my application. First of all, let's go ahead. I have a PHP application running there. So I'm going to go ahead and open the PHP. It's a PHP application, and all it's doing is it's reading data from the database. Okay, here, I think this is one of the scripts you guys were working on. And here, when you were looking at bookers by last name and so on, here is I use a Google chart to create this. And here is, I'm keeping track of updates that are being made to the database. I haven't started the program yet. Let me go ahead and start the program that's going to do the update. It is. This is a Perl application. And what it's doing is, it's just running stuff. It's creating, it's inserting data, but look here. You see the data is changing, and this is happening in real time in HeatWave. So we're not just saying that HeatWave works. It works, and it works all the time. And the reason it's not moving as fast as you can, because I put a delay to just display every 2 seconds. So now that I've done my demo, and I have been able to prove that you can develop with HeatWave. Let's stop this Perl guy. It's doing too much. What we're going to do is we are going to at least attempt. It is you guys' turn now to try and do your own application. And we're going to do that by creating a lamp stack. So let me go ahead. First of all, I'm going to stop the video so you guys can focus on what I'm doing. Okay, this is how I work. I'm going to have 2 screens. Let's close. I got too many things going on here. Okay. Here, this is my screen where I am going to work. Let's make it just big enough to do my work. Okay. Okay, the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go to lab 6. We did task 1 already. We're gonna do task 2. Now, in order to do test 2, I'm going to go to the, I'm going to go to OCI. Let's, okay, I got too much going on here. Let's take out a few things. Here's my OCI screen. Hope you guys can see it. Okay, I think I have enough room to do what I need to do. Okay, I am logged in. I'm where Priscilla was. MySQL is already there. MySQL shell is already there. And the first thing I want to do is SSH into it. Okay, let's SSH into my system. Where's my cheat sheet? Here it is. I'm going to go into I call my compute instance Heatwave in it. Just gonna come in. Okay, I'm in. Okay, now I have everything. The first thing I'm gonna do, now go with me and let's work together. The first thing I'm gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and set up our HTTP port, because what we're gonna do is we're going to set up so that we can run Apache. So the first thing, I think I already have done it, but I want to walk you through the process. So I'm going to minimize this guy, go into networking, and then I am going to go to virtual cloud networks. I have a lot of stuff, so let's just focus on mine. This is it. It's MDSVC, and it's somewhat similar to yours. And we're interested in the public subnet. So you're going to click on here. And then you're going to click on the security list. And what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead here. Let me simulate it for you. You click on here, you go down here, you copy this. And then you copy H0 and you copy HTTP port. And then you add. I'm not adding, I already have it. Oh, it's a good thing I looked. 80. All right. So now that we have all of our ports set up and everything is okay, it is time to set up the Apache server. So the way to do it is, let's say, okay, OCI, we don't need you now. Go ahead, close yourself. All right, so it's closed. Okay, now we're gonna install, the first thing we're gonna do is install Apache server. Let's see who can get, if any of you could beat me to this. First thing I'm gonna do is install, just copy this command. You know, some people say copying code and just doing it, you don't learn, but guess what? When you do it enough, you start learning it and you start knowing what to do. And when bad things happen, you know how to fix it. So trust me, just go along with it. Just get it done. The next time you have a chance, go back in and then try again. Okay, we did that. So now we're going to do this. It's done. If you're having problems, talk to Priscilla. She's been practicing quite a bit. Okay, we're gonna set up our firewall. Remember the one we're opening? We're letting the compute instance talk to it. All right. And we're gonna reload. Perfect. All right. Let's see if my Apache is working. If I install it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run it. Okay, we have our Apache server. We have the A in limp all set up. Now, let's go ahead and do the rest. We're going to install PHP. By the way, if you are using PHP 7, this install will not work. I mean, Linux 7, this install will not work for you. This install is specific for Linux 8, and you have to be using Oracle Linux, okay? So if you follow this workshop, the lab, and you do everything we say, it will work for you. Anything else you do, you at your own. Okay, let's go ahead, do the first line. Please. I forgot to do a PHP to show you that a PHP that it wasn't there. It's a new creation. And here we've installed PHP 7.419. Perfect. Now I want to make sure when I install PHP, because I'm going to use MySQL, I also want to make sure that my SQL libraries are there too. So this is why I'm going to do a grep to see if they were installed too. Oh, it's not there. Okay, well, let's get to work. We're going to install it and all the other stuff that we need. I'm not going to put Perl, but if we're going to, in this instance, because I didn't put the instruction for Perl in this workshop. So everything is there, but when you're doing Perl, you also have to install Perl too. So it's the same thing. Let's just do a grep again, please. I need some water. Hold on. Good. All right. Perl is here. And we have our MySQL. And from MySQL, let's go ahead and make sure nothing changed with the version when we did our install. Okay, everything's good. All right, so now we have to restart Apache. Because when we did the install, there were new stuff. We need to make sure it's up to date and everything is okay. So we started Apache. And then now we're gonna make sure, do a little test application for PHP. So we're gonna create one, really simple. Okay, sudo nano. Okay, most developers like VI, VIM and all this. I like nano, okay? So I'm doing nano. You on your own if you do anything else. Okay, Control X. I want to save, yes. Poof. Let's make sure it's there. ls var www html. Oh, it's there. So I'm going to go back to Apache and I'm going to say, hey, let's try info.php. Ta-da, man, we are rocking. Look at this. And look at all of the libraries that we put in there. Most important, let's make sure MySQL is there. It's in alphabetical order. Just be patient, you'll get there. MySQL, if you don't see MySQLi, you've done something wrong. Go back to the workshop and look and see what you've missed. If you can't tell, destroy the compute instance and start again. Look, you have $500 to work with. Don't worry about it. Okay. Now I've shown you how to install it. You say, okay, Prasidi, I know how to set up Apache. I know how to go to Workbench and see what's in my database without having to, just stay in MySQL shell. I want to code. Come on, get going. Okay, let's do it. What we're going to do is we're going to create a configuration application. A file. That way we can use it all the time. We don't have to keep setting it up every single time. So let's go ahead. First of all, very important, almost got in trouble. Because we are going to use MySQL with PHP and Apache, we have to set up the Linux. And that's another That's because we want to open it up so that Apache can use it. Because remember, our database is very secure. So let's go ahead and copy this. And I'm going to go back to my OCI shell. And I'm going to paste it there. Takes a little while. Okay, it's there. So it's there. We've taken care of security. We're good to go. So now let's go to the web folder. Here, let's make sure we're there, the PWD. And as you're doing these things, if you're a Windows person and you don't know Linux, I'm a Windows person too. Because I've been working with all these things, by doing these cutting and pasting and trying things out and figuring it out on my own, I understand Linux. And guess what? I kind of like it. Yes, I'm embarrassed to say that, but I like it. Okay, let's go ahead and create our config file. Okay. See, we made everything so easy for you. All you have to do is paste. We have a problem though. Don't save so fast. Remember, you need to put the IP address of the database. Luckily for me, I saved the IP address of my database. And I'm gonna put it in. Okay, here, and I have, my database, my password is a little bit different. I'm just doing 1, 2, 3. Welcome 1, 2, 3. Okay, I don't know. I think I have everything. Let's go ahead and try it. Control X, don't say no, say yes. It saves it and you're good. So now what we're gonna do, I'm gonna just to make sure that my config is working, I'm just gonna put it in here and say, because if there's an error, it will tell me. Oh my God, it says it can't find it. That's because I can't spell. Let's try. Right. Look at this. Good job. Okay, you're not done yet. Let's go ahead. We just can connect to the database. Let's read something and display it. Okay. We're gonna go down here. Okay, we're still in the HTML folder. Yeah, we're there. Make sure, do a PWD, make sure you're there. If you're not, go there. Now we're gonna create a dbtest.php application. And what it's gonna do, here, I'll show you. Okay, go up, copy, paste. There. Look, we don't have to worry about the IP address because we have our little config file. And I'm gonna say, hey, find Neil Armstrong and so on. I don't know if it's there because I've been playing with the database quite a bit. That may be surprising, but for you, it will work. So Control X, yes, and hit enter. Oof. Now let's go back. The name of the file, I forgot, what is it? dbtest.php. Did you guys get it? Did it work for you guys too? Man, this is good, huh? Okay, we're done with this lab. We're gonna do the next lab. Next lab, I don't think you guys are gonna have time to do it all today, because this lab takes a while to set up everything. However, before this, I already set up my system. So I'm gonna do a quick demo for you guys. I'm gonna do a demo, show you how it works. And then when you have some time, you can create it on your own. And if you have any question or you need help, you're really interested, you wanna get it done, send us email, we'll help you. So let's go ahead again. Before we go to task 3, let's take a deep breath. I need some water, hold on. Okay, now to do that, we need to go to OCI. First thing we're gonna do, let's go ahead and review this. We are going to go ahead and create the analytic, the Oracle Cloud Analytics instance. Oracle Cloud Analytic, Oracle Analytic Cloud, sorry. I don't know, it's just a cloud application that we use. It's way more powerful than what I showed you in with the Google's chart application. You can do so much more. It's just like all these other analytics products. And the good thing is we have this in the cloud. So you have to do very little work in order to use it. So I'm going to show you, you do little work, but it takes a little while to get it to work the first time. So let me go ahead and open up this. Okay. I'm gonna close it. I don't need this guy anymore. Bye-bye. Okay. Now this is, let me make sure I'm in the right place. Okay, we're gonna go to the Oracle Analytic Cloud. So what we do is we go here, we go to Analytics AI, go to Analytics Cloud. It's somewhat similar to Tableau, but a whole lot more powerful than Tableau. And so what you do is you come in here, you say create, you put in your information, the name, you describe it, you make sure you're in the right compartment, and you select Enterprise Analytics. There are so many options you can get, but you select Enterprise Analytics. And your capacity, you select 1 CPU and non-production. And that's it, and you hit create. And about 10 minutes to 15 minutes later, you will get the OAC Dev, which is this guy. That's what I create. I called it OAC Dev, and you see it's done. And I usually do lots. So when I do my app, my demos, I like things to go fast. So I created a couple of instances in there, but let's go ahead. I created my analytic cloud. As you can see, it's active. It's going on pretty good. And you guys can see I've been doing quite a few demos. And the thing is, when you create your cloud, you have to create a private access channel. Do you know why? Well, the Oracle Analytic Cloud is used to going directly to a database if you use MySQL, and it has a public IP. But remember, our database did not have a public IP. We have a private IP. We're big on security. So what you have to do is you have to create a private access channel. And let's see, I can't show you how to create one because I have it already open, but you would go in there and let me show you how it looks like. You'd go in there, you'd create it. Let's see if I can edit so you can see. Yeah, you tell it what compartment and so on, and also your VCN. It needs this type of information. And once you have that, you set it up, and within about, that's the one that takes a while. It takes 20 minutes. But once it's done, you're ready to go into the Oracle Analytic Cloud. Okay, let's click. And there are many ways. You can go ahead and copy this URL. It'll take you to it. Here, I'll go ahead and do that. Or you can just click from in here and it will take you to it. Let me do this one. And let's go ahead and kill this guy. We don't need him anymore. I'm already logged in. Here I am. Okay, I've been doing quite a bit of stuff. Okay, so now let me see. I think I might need my cheat sheet just in case. Anyway, once you're in the Oracle Analytics Cloud, in order to talk to a database, give me a minute. Let's move this out of here. In order to talk to the database, you need to be able to connect to it. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to create your connection. So you click create and you go ahead and click connection. As you can see here, Oracle Analytics Cloud talks to everybody. It's very friendly. So, but we're really interested in creating a MySQL connector. So we're going to call it MySQL. There. Okay. Now, in order to do your MySQL connector, you have to do quite a few things. I already have a MySQL connector, but let me walk you through the process. So when you do yours, you'll know what to do. First of all, when you go in there, let's go ahead and call it Dev Workshop HeatWave. And here, we put the description here. The host, don't put your IP address. It will not understand it. Remember when you were working with Priscilla and when you were creating your database, she said to put in your host name. I hope you did that, because if not, you're not going to be able to use Oracle Analytics Cloud. Okay, so I'm going to go to the database, go to DB Systems. I have a lot of databases. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, look, guys, just show me the active ones. Okay, here. This is the database I'm using. It's called MDS Demo. You click on it and you go all the way to the bottom. There's a couple of places. You could get the endpoint from here, or you can get it from here. This is the endpoint. When you created the database, and remember when you put that MDS HeatWave or whatever, and you put it in the network at the bottom before you edit your data, this is the name it starts with, and then it gives you some other extra information, and you just copy it. You go back to Oracle Analytics, you paste it, port 3306. Database name, we're going to use Airport DB. And username admin, password welcome. I'm not gonna do it because I already have one. It's demo. I wanna make sure everything works. Okay, so now we've created our MySQL connector. Let's go ahead and we are going to do the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna create our data set. Okay. In order to create your data set, you need your MySQL connector, which I created earlier. It's called Dev HeatWave. So I'm going to connect to it. There it is. Now, remember that query you guys did with Priscilla? Let me get it for you, because I'm not going to go into a lot of HeatWave, Oracle Analytics training today. This is not the time or place. We'd have to have another one for you. I'm just showing you some quick tips on how to use it. And then when you get hooked on it, you have this for 30 days. So you can really play with it. And I think I'll probably show you a link where you can actually do some serious Oracle Analytics training. So let's just go down here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the query that you guys worked with Priscilla on. Here it is right here. This is the airline, and it has average people for Switzerland, France, and Italy. It's only interested in Switzerland, France, and Italy. So you're not getting everybody in the system. So I'm going to go back over to my Oracle Analytics cloud, which is right here. And I'm going to tell it, hey, I'm going to do this by hand. Okay, so it opens up a screen for me so I could put my SQL statement in. It didn't remember, so I have to go back and grab it. Copy. Paste. There, I have. So I'm getting, and I'm only getting 10 lines. I could get more, but let's hurry up and get this over with. So I say, click get preview data. What it's doing right now is getting it. Okay, it's getting the data. See, has data, everything's fine. And what I'm gonna do is click OK. And it's gonna generate some charts for me. There, you know, little baby charts. But I want to play with it and do stuff with the data. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to save this guy. I'm going to call it airport data set 99. Let's do that. Okay. My data set is saved. So now I'm ready to do work and create a workbook with my data. Here you see it. I have my airport data set 99. And what I want to do, first I want to do like a world map. Remember, we're looking at 3 countries. So let's go ahead and click here. Click here. So I can pick the map I want. I want to do a world map. So I'm going to say, I think it's down here somewhere. There it is right here. Drag it and I put it there. Okay, it's all set. I go back to my data set and this time I want to say number of people. I want it, you know, number of people and airlines that have traveled throughout the world. Those, not throughout the world, throughout those 3 countries we talked about. So I click number of people and I click airline and I drag it there. Look, you see how fast Heatwave is behaving, and we're doing a lot of data here. Oh my God, lots of people in Australia. Oh, let's move this one. This is, oh, we have a couple in Afghanistan. We have a couple in Belarus airline. We have Angola airline. Which one's this one? Argentina. It makes the point. You guys can play with it some more. Let's go ahead and try to do another chart. So we go back, and this time I want to do a bar chart. But what I do is I click on the little plus sign, and I say, okay, I want to do a bar chart. And I want to do a bar chart with the same data that I was working on. So you go back to data set, okay? And again, number of people, control airline, drag them here. It's good. Look, you have a different chart. There's so much you can do. It even has tools that can actually do most of the work for you. But let's go ahead and wrap this up. We're gonna wrap up this workshop. So let's click on present. What present is doing is it's giving me a chance to set up. I can do a presentation with my charts. This is the first one. And I can show the second one. I can do so much more, but you get the picture. What I want to do is I'm showing you that we were able to do everything on this lab 6. And I hope you were able to keep up with me. And most important of all, I hope that you guys enjoyed this and that you give yourself a chance to play with this. Play with the data, play with the tools in OCI, play with the code, and keep an eye on this workshop, because what I'm going to do next is I'm going to put the code. Remember the code that I had? Let me see. Let's see if I can find the remember the code I had for Google. I think it was for Google Chart right here. I'm going to put that code out. And I'm also going to put the piece of code for Perl, so you guys can practice. Because one of the things I've learned is you learn best by following an example. So we put the example in, you write it, you try it, and then you add your own piece to it. And in no time, you'll have an amazing application to share with your client. It was a lot of fun working with you today. I hope you guys were able to get everything done and had fun. I guess this is my way of saying goodbye, and thank you for making time for us today.
Thank you, Percy and Priscilla and Mandy, for the fantastic presentation. I will go ahead and share my screen again to wrap up with some concluding slides. So if you enjoyed today's session, we'd like to invite you to join our upcoming events. Those will be taking place on February 28th and March 3rd. So you'll find more workshops and webinars on our developer virtual events site here. And then we also encourage you to share with us any feedback that you have on today's session. And we're also interested to know what you think about Oracle's event registration process and what types of events appeal to you. As I mentioned briefly in the beginning, before we got started, we'd like to test your knowledge on what you learned during the lab. So by completing several questions of our lab quiz correctly, you'll achieve a Developer Pioneer badge that you can share to your social media channels. And lastly, we have a couple of events that are special that we want to highlight that are coming up. So the first one is Pi Day, and this is an all-out Pi extravaganza with labs and demos, streaming icons, and free swag. And the topics range from Linux, Growl, MySQL to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, and deep dives into analytics and AI and machine learning. So come hang out with us on March 14th. And then finally, on March 22nd, Developer Live will be taking place, featuring the most up-to-date Java information from technical sessions, birds of feather, and live hands-on labs by Oracle and industry experts. And so with that, I will go ahead and end today's session. And thank you all again for joining us today. We hope to see you again next time.